A Jamaican, Dr. Gary Rhule, is the Director of Health and Human Services for the city of Hartford in Connecticut. He tells his story on Profile. Welcome. I'm Ian Boyne. Good to have you on the show, Gary. Impressive CV, MBA from the prestigious Wharton School, the Master in Public Health from the renowned Johns Hopkins, as well as the medical degree from the University of Rochester, and of course a first degree in biology from Amherst College. That's quite a distance from John Mills, just nearby the studios here of TVJ.
It is, thank you. But first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your show to express and to talk about my experiences. It's a far distance from John Mills.
Yes. You grew up in working class circumstances here in Jamaica, living in Washington Gardens. Tell us about your family setting.
Sure, so there are four of us, two sisters and one brother. And grew up in Patrick City on Auburn Patrick City, Washington Gardens.
Oh yes, Auburn Avenue. Yeah. I know that place. And your parents were?
My mom is a florist, making flower arrangements, wedding bouquets.
Yes.
Very creative. And my dad was a Duco man, which means man, so a body shop mechanic. So he could not really any cars that got damaged, he could knock it back out, paint it, make it look like brand new again.
But things were challenging for you economically growing up here.
No, definitely. Things were definitely challenging for us. I mean, there were times when on Friday, I remember eating just like an egg sandwich, no food on Friday.
No food.
No food.
And you couldn't go to KFC.
You know?
A lot of Jamaicans do have
no KFC. No, we didn't have that.
Friday, but they go to fast food places. Not you. No food at all.
No, none of that. None of that. Sometimes coming from school, having no bus fare, my brother picking me up from school, we walking home from John Mills.
You walk from I know where Auburn Avenue is in Patrick City. You'd walk from here?
From Retirement Crescent.
Retirement Crescent?
All the way.
That's a lot of walking.
Made us strong. Made us physically strong.
That's a positive way to look at it. And then you went to Wolmer's.
And I went to Wolmer's, spent 2 years there, left acting in the second form, and then went to New York, lived with my grandparents.
Your grandparents?
My grandparents initially. My dad, my siblings and I, and my grandparents, my dad's parents.
How was that adjustment?
So, coming from Jamaica where everything is warm, your family, everything is here, and then I went there in the middle of winter, in the middle of February. It's freezing cold. The environment is different. It's all skyscrapers. People tell you the streets are filled with gold. The streets weren't filled with gold. In 1976, there was a lot of poop on the streets. Yeah. So it's just completely different.
And it was the Bronx.
And it was the Bronx.
Yeah, not the most luxurious part of the U.S. Or New York.
No.
And what were the living conditions like in that Bronx?
Very close to 3 bedrooms. Cramped, very cramped. Four of us, my dad, my grandparents, very cramped. Yeah. Versus being here in Jamaica where there's, even though it's only 3 bedrooms, lots of green space, you can run, you can play. In the Bronx, it's not like that. So very different.
What was school life like?
The transition to school is difficult because I remember specifically like going to school, the teacher asks a question, you're answering. I got up, I stood up to answer, and the class kind of just laughed. They're like, well, where did he come from? What kind of, right. We don't do this. We don't stand up. Yeah. The teacher asks the questions and we just answer.
Yes.
So very different. The people are different. Everything is different.
Yes. And you must have had thoughts in those early days of coming back home. It was so much easier to be in Jamaica, eh?
Well, not really. I mean, it's also nice to be in a new place. Family's there. I'm with my dad. My mom wasn't with us. My mom didn't come at the same time, but my dad is there. My grandparents are there. My brother, my 2 sisters were very close. So even though we're in a very strange place, very different, people are different, the culture's different, the food is different, you're really with family. So that kind of got us through.
Yes, yeah. And the high school that you were attending, was it a predominantly minority school or
So initially, when I was in the Bronx, it was predominantly minority, but
Minority.
mostly Latinos from Puerto Rico, African American, some whites. So I lived with my dad for a year. Then he decided to come back to Jamaica. So one summer he came to Jamaica to visit, left us.
Left you?
Left us. And then my sisters and I and my brother went to live with my mom in Connecticut because at that point they'd separated.
Okay. So in Connecticut, your school environment was different ethnically.
Right, definitely. So in Hartford, the high school was all black. 95% black, 5% Puerto Rican.
Okay. But you did well.
I did very well. I came first in my class.
You
I
came
was
first?
a valedictorian.
And you were valedictorian
Yeah,
there?
I was valedictorian, did very well.
So the habits of study were inculcated in you from early. Was education of prime importance in your home?
Absolutely. So being in the school here, the foundation being in Jamaica, I think is excellent. Really good time management, studying, really being focused, that was there. So really naturally, I transferred that to the schools in the U.S. Excellent foundation.
Yes. And when did the attraction to medicine begin? How long did you have it?
So my brother had asthma, and he was always in the ER. And I had asthma. And
You had asthma too?
Yeah, I had asthma too, but wasn't in the ER as often as he was.
He was.
So I was really around a lot of docs in the ER, seeing people all the time. I thought it was just cool to be able to treat people, give them medications. I thought it was just really cool. So really from about maybe at 9, 10, 11, I wanted to be a doc.
You wanted to be a doctor from there?
Right. Then I did well in math and science, both in high school, both here and at Woolmer. So naturally, teacher said, that's what you should do. So I really had the attraction from probably like age 10, 11.
And in fact, you ended up working in ER for perhaps a total of 20 years, eh?
I worked in the ER for about 20 years. Really, everything comes in, a young baby, person who's 100 years old, anything. A car accident, a gunshot wound, a stab wound, heart attacks, really everything. And it was fun.
And what are the kinds of characteristics which are crucially important for a doctor working in ER, having to deal with that degree of stress and just urgencies all around and so on? What does the doctor really have to have?
Focus.
Focus.
Focus on the problem at hand. Really, every problem can be solved. You're not the superhero. There is usually somebody else, so you do the focus. You can pass it on to the cardiologist and the specialist, but really focus. Time management.
Time management.
And to think critically about the problems that are in front of you. Those are the basic things, but you have to be able to multitask as well, right? So you're dealing with 10 patients at the same time, multiple information data points coming in. Then you have to be able to communicate both to the patient, to the doctor, other people, family members who are grieving. So it's really kind of doing all of those things, but definitely focus.
And every family is only focused on
their particular,
precisely.
Right, their particular.
Whereas you
issue.
have 9 others to
I have 9 people to deal with. Right.
So being able to manage interpersonal relations and manage emotions at that time is critically important.
Sure. People come in, they're in pain, they're injured, they're angry. You have to be able to focus them on the issue, bring them back to that. The family members come in, they're concerned about their loved ones. You have to focus on that for that period.
Yes.
Then a car accident comes in, you have to switch focus and go to deal with something else. Most of the times in the ER, there's really little joy. Like, you don't really have babies being born. Sometimes it happens, but when it does, it's always a crisis, right? The mother who comes in and it's a precipitous delivery.
Yes.
So you kind of deal with that. But you have to be able to shift from dealing with a patient, with a family, with the patient, and communicate that really well, and in a very short time period.
But isn't it the fact that a lot of doctors who work in ER suffer burnout?
You do. You do, because you're doing all of that.
Yeah.
The hours are long. You do different shifts. So I was doing different shifts. I did the day shift, then the night shift. Your body doesn't adjust.
Yes.
And so really after 20 years, I think most docs try to transition out.
But 20 years is a long
It's
time.
a long time.
It's a long time to survive.
It's a long time.
And you don't show any of the signs of the strain at all. I mean, you're so cool and really not showing that you spent a year in ER. We're speaking to Dr. Gary Rhule. He's the Director of Health and Human Services for the city of Hartford in Connecticut, a Jamaican who has that very important position. He did the Master of Public Health. from the famed Johns Hopkins University. And he's also trained